How many jumps does it take to beat Super Mario Odyssey? Now I know many speedrunners and pro runners alike have beaten this game without jumping at all, but those runs use the in-game jump counter, which throws technicalities into the mix, which we won't be doing here. So in this video, we're going to be seeing how many jumps are actually necessary to beat Super Mario Odyssey in a normal playthrough, meaning the amount of mandatory jumps it takes in every kingdom to beat the game without any fancy tricks or technicalities. So as long as you press the jump button and Mario gets off the ground, it counts as a jump, no matter if you're in a capture or not. And yes, cap jumps and wall jumps count too. So with the intro done, let's get into Cap Kingdom, in which we get to the first jump of the game. Yeah, even though this technically doesn't count as a jump literally in the game, it's gonna count in this video. So let's get to it. Cap Kingdom is gonna take a mandatory 15 jumps to get through the kingdom, as it takes 2 jumps to get up to the bridge with the use of a cap throw to keep us in the air, and 1 more jump to get up to the door. The frog room takes several jumps to get through, and the boss fight takes 3 jumps to beat, including 1 more to actually get up to the platform. Now we just use the motion controls to capture the spark pylon, and we're off to Cascade Kingdom with a total of 15 jumps in the bag. And once we reach Cascade, we get our first jump when getting our first power moon. The next couple jumps are required to get up some platforms, and we end up getting our second power moon in the rocks with the help of a chain jump. And yes, I did try getting the moon without jumping, but it's way too far to get without at least 1 jump. We then use Dino Skip to get past the rest of the kingdom, cause why the f not? And boom, we get out of the kingdom with a total of 7 jumps, which is the second lowest number of jumps we'll see in this entire video. Next up is Sand Kingdom, and once we land, we instantly roll over to the Oasis, where we get 2 moons and 6 jumps right off the bat. In the main village, we get 6 more jumps from 3 other moons, the one up in the tower, the ground pound sub area, and the ground pound moon in the sand. At the ruins, several jumps are made, but in my run, I took the non-optimal route, in which only afterwards when scripting this video, I realized, so I'm just gonna tell you what it actually is. Once you get to the ruins, the first thing you should do is go to the 2nd floor of the building and hit the checkpoint flag so you're able to teleport to it, which you all probably know by now I didn't do. But once you get this flag, you can get the next 2 moons on the towers with only 1 jump, since you use the bullet bill to get them. And for the one on the archway, you need to bait the bullet bill out, and while it chases you, you long jump dive onto the moon you freed from the box, and then capture the bullet bill right after the animation ends to ride all the way to the archway. It's not complicated, but kinda hard to do with the motion controls, I can't even lie. But next is the 2D section, which is jumps galore, which brings us to our next story moon, and basically the last set of moons that we get, which I'm not gonna go over because they're boring. And with those last moons done, we get to an astonishing 43 jumps, which is a little over 6 times the jumps of the last kingdom, which is crazy. But it gets crazier in Wooded Kingdom, of course, not only because of the really big map, but also because that's about it, it's just really big. The highlights of this kingdom comes within the obstacle sections, as you really can't get past them without jumping. There's really nothing you can do about it other than give in to the game's wishes. And also in both boss fights, as they both require you to literally make your character jump in order to beat them both, so there's that. Most of the other moons aren't that jump heavy, apart from a couple here and there, but most of the jumps come from the obstacles themselves and not the actual moons. But with that said and done, the jump counter ends up coming out to a surprisingly 69 jumps. I know, right? What a coincidence. This kingdom will have one of the higher jump counts we will see in this game for a while, until we get later into the game. Lake is the next kingdom, and as anticipated, it doesn't have that many jumps, since the entire kingdom is water, and we're not counting swimming as jumping, only the action of coming out of the water as jumping, as that's a legitimate jump. The jump count in this kingdom comes up to 10, which was much less than what I thought it was going to be, as most of the jumps only happen when covering long distances and actually getting the moon. So overall, not that bad of a kingdom. Cloud is also pretty low, as you only need to jump on the cloud to enter the boss arena, and then just catch Bowser right before he jumps during the fight to finish the fight off. Not too bad, if I must say so myself. Now we get to Lost Kingdom, where from now on the jump counter will stop being as low as the last 2 kingdoms. So first things first, we have to avoid Klepto at all costs, because that bird literally costs us a lot of unnecessary jumps that we don't need to have in our lives. And the only way to avoid them is to get onto this tree and do a triple jump into a cap jump into a dive to get here, where we are able to go around the kingdom and collect moons as we please. But there's a section of the kingdom where if Mario steps onto it, Klepto will be triggered and we'll have to go get Cappy, which, as I said before, is very unnecessary. So we go through the entire kingdom mostly as a tropical wiggler, since instead of jumping for these moons, we can uncapture and extend onto platforms, which saves us from jumping ourselves. But even with all this help, our jump count for this kingdom still racks up to 23, as most of the moons before the wiggler section requires us to jump, which isn't the greatest, but hey, I'll take the 23. That's much better than what's coming up next, which is, you guessed it, Metro Kingdom. And with such a big kingdom like Metro, you'd think it'll have the highest jump count in the game, right? Wrong. Let's go over it, shall we? Well, a lot of the jumps happen during the opening section of Night Metro, since we have to go through the entire city and climb all the way to the top of the tower, which in itself takes 21 jumps to do, so that's basically the entirety of Lost Kingdom right there in one section. And the rest of the jumps happen in the sub areas that I chose, which I know could have been avoided, but I totally forgot where all the optimal moons were in this kingdom, so it's let me off, okay? But in the end, we get to a solid 58 jumps, which in my opinion is pretty low, especially for one of the bigger kingdoms in this game. But with Metro over and done with, we now get to the next two kingdoms, which are Snow and Seaside, which both come up to be pretty even in jumps, Snow only having 35 and Seaside with 30. But with Seaside, I did use the Gushions, which I counted every upwards movement as a jump just to make it fair, since Gushions allow you to fly and all. But now we get to my least favorite kingdom in this run because of how spread out all the moons are, and not because it makes me feel like eating a horse every time I see it, and that's the Luncheon Kingdom. Most of the jumps in this kingdom are very similar to Wooded, as they're mostly just obstacle jumps and climbing oriented versus actually getting the moons. Of course, there are moons where jumping is actually required to get them, but other than that, it was just climb to get the moons. You know, I feel like the kingdoms with Speward as the boss of the kingdom are the ones I hate the most because of how much climbing is intended for those kingdoms. It's like you finally get to your destination and the game says F you and puts you back at the Odyssey. Like, come on man, leave me up there, let me get some more moons. But overall, this kingdom comes out to a whopping 68 jumps. Crazy, right? That's one less than Wooded. But now with Lunch Kingdom over and done with, we get to fight the dragon, which surprisingly took 25 jumps. But if you're good enough to do the damage booster strat, which I'm clearly not, it shouldn't take that much at all. Which now brings us to Bowser's Kingdom, and the only thing I'm going to go over in this kingdom are the Pokeos, as the way I counted their movement on the walls may be a little debatable, but I did not count the flings as jumps because as the Pokeos, you can jump while walking around it normally. But when you're moving on the walls, it's not really a jump, it's more of a launch. And I know you could say the same thing for the Gushions, but those things literally make you fly, whereas these literally, as it says in the game, flings you. So yeah, with that explanation done, you're literally just gonna be going through the level normally, mostly as a Pokeo trying to fling at any time possible to get around jumping, and this all comes up to 37 jumps altogether, which again, I didn't expect, but the help from the Pokeos did help a lot. And now for the final kingdom, which is Moon Kingdom, and in my opinion, I didn't think this kingdom would take that many jumps honestly. I thought it'd take at least 20, but no, I totally forgot about the escape sequence, and oh boy does it take it out of you, because there's really no out to skipping the jumps like in other kingdoms. You're basically forced to jump up all these platforms to actually escape the rubble and beat the game. So that's exactly what I did. I went through this entire escape sequence and the boss fight, which alone takes a few jumps as well. But once the game was over and it was all said and done, Moon Kingdom alone didn't take 20 jumps, it didn't take 50 jumps, but took a grand total of 75 jumps to complete. I don't know where the hell all those extra jumps came from, but they came from somewhere, I just don't know how. And we even did Moon Skip for God's sake. But now for what you've all been waiting for, the final tally of how many jumps it actually took to beat this entire quote-unquote normal playthrough, even though I did a bunch of speedrun techniques that I said I wouldn't do in the opening of this video when I said I wouldn't do any fancy tricks. But for the grand total of jumps, drumroll please. Damn, what the f***, no drumroll? Okay, well, here's the number. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. There's a number. Have fun. See you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See ya.